Welcome to Unlearn, where we talk to industry leaders about unlearning how we go to market.
I'm Kelly Sarafin, and I run Tech Partner Enablement and Advocacy at HubSpot.
And I'm Asher Matthew, co-founder of Partnership Leaders.
The old ways of going to market are getting more expensive and less effective.
To thrive in an era of digital transformation, you have to go to market differently. Let's find out how. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Unlearn Podcast. I'm here with Kelly again, and it's going to be a fun one. Greg,
that's what I heard.
Let's hope so.
Okay, low expectation. This is the second podcast we're recording today. It's going to be great. Well, today, this is a special podcast on a number of fronts because, and I'm actually going to we can't show video on this thing. Hopefully, one day I can show my screen on this podcast, like the All-In Podcast does. But
my favorite podcast, by the way. I love that podcast.
Or do you hear the All-In Podcast too? Oh, cool.
I'm a religious listener. Yeah.
Well, Greg, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll tell the story of how we connected.
Yeah. So, hi everybody. I'm Greg Sarafin. I am a partner with the firm EY. I've been here for 9 years, and for the last 7 years, I have been responsible for building and expanding our partner ecosystem. And that has been a tremendous journey for me and for the firm. And we're going to share some of the learnings and some of the cool things we've done, and hopefully that's useful to our audience.
Well, okay, now let me introduce you. Guys, Greg is, as we now know him, the Yoda of partnerships.
Oh my God.
As he was just named that. But in truth, like purely from a respect perspective.
Wait, who is he named this by?
Yeah, well, that person is never going to be
named by Asher?
No, it was not me.
But, it wasn't Asher. No.
But Greg is a legend. Almost 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, I remember sending Greg a LinkedIn message saying, "Hey, your stuff is amazing. Can I just get a little bit of time with you?" Right? And then I never heard from him.
And he was like, "Hell no." Who
exactly.
are you?
Exactly.
Okay, now you're making me sound like an ogre.
Yeah. But in the land of partnerships, like there are very few people that are as deep thinkers as Greg, and the reason why we're a little bit more casual on this podcast is because I've gotten to know Greg over the last year. He's been very gracious with his time and his knowledge and his guidance and his advice with me. So Greg's actually a friend. That's why we're a little bit more casual on this podcast compared to some of the other podcasts. But Greg is the chief partner officer of EY. I mean, and the stuff that he's done at the company is truly remarkable. I have had 2 education sessions from Greg in person. One of them, he actually sat me down and showed me like what he's done. It's incredible, like taking a company's partner contribution from $1 billion to like, let's say closer to 10 this year, right, Greg? In 7.5 years. I don't know if there's other people that have actually done that type of work, truly building it out. And we're going to unpack some of that today. But Greg, thank you for your friendship and thank you for the service that you're doing to the partner world. You're definitely an inspiration for me, and hopefully through this podcast for many others.
Yeah, I'm a 6'3" Yoda, which apparently I didn't know until now. So that's great. So
totally.
So here we are.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. You're new to our audience. You're very well known in a lot of places, but let's just hear the story so that we can kick the convo off.
Well, how far do you want me to go back? I was born in Philadelphia in 1963. The day before Kennedy was assassinated. That's right, Philly in the house. There you go.
It's rare that someone says it, so I got to be excited.
I'll skip forward a few decades. How's that? I think that's probably a little dated now. Although I am a baby boomer, so there you go. There is that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the most reviled generation of our time.
I know, right? You just get hate on the internet. I don't know why.
Hated.
But there's a lot of hate there.
A lot of hate. Well deserved.
You're Yoda, so you have an exception.
So anyway, look, I have had a very long career, which I won't bore your audience with. The last 20, though, have been sort of where I've hit my stride, I guess, professionally. I actually sold my first deal 41 years ago to help pay undergraduate expenses at my university. But the last 20 years, I've been at Bearing Point, then IBM, then EY. At, three very large, prominent firms where I've been able to draft in behind scale, brand permission, and a lot of other things that the first half of my career I didn't have. Right, so it's been a tale of two careers, I guess. And so, and it's also at these bigger firms I really focused on what it turns out my fastball is, which is go to market. Whether it's managing client relationships, I had the opportunity to manage one of IBM's largest client relationships while I was there. Also one of Bearing Point's, actually, when I was there. And then I also got a chance to do a role at IBM to today we would call a chief revenue officer or a revenue officer role. I wasn't the chief revenue officer ultimately at IBM, but I had a big chunk of the business there. And then at EY, I got to go to what I originally called the dark side, which was the partner side of revenue. And honestly, I didn't go to EY to do partnering. As Asher knows, I actually went to EY to do essentially what I was doing at IBM, but at EY, because I wanted some of the capabilities that in my go-to-market calculus, I realized that what I was doing, I could create more value doing it at EY or other big four rather than at a tech company. So I came to EY to do financial services, which I did do for a couple of years, and I focused a lot on technology because I am a technologist. And at some point, the firm was like, "Wow, you're creating a lot of revenue with all these tech companies. How are you doing it?" And then I got asked to change my career trajectory and to build the EY partner ecosystem in a global role. And so, we have a saying at EY, I got voluntold to do the role, which I did with great trepidation because I had always been, quote, direct revenue. And, I was, like many people, didn't really understand fully. I understood more than what most people did because I've done a lot of joint go-to-market with partners in my career, but on the service line side, the business side, not on the partner function side. So anyway, it turned out to be a smart thing for me professionally, and it turned out to be a smart thing for EY because I applied a different set of principles and execution model to it than I guess you would traditionally apply. And it has resulted in a lot of value creation for our clients, most importantly, for our people, for our partners, and for our stakeholders more broadly. So I guess what we'll talk a little bit about, Asher and Kelly, is a little bit more about, what we did, why it was different, why it worked, et cetera. But it's been a heck of a 7 years. And there's about 110 days left, by the way. As Asher knows, I am a baby boomer, which means I'm old officially, apparently. I turned 60 back in November. And so, at these big four firms, for good reasons, it's up and out, right? You hit a certain age and you're asked to go off and do your next thing. So that's where I'm at now. I'll be transitioning to my successor shortly. But, in the meantime, happy to share wisdom and knowledge and learnings with anybody that's willing to sit here and listen to me. And apparently you too want to hear it. So here we are.
On a Friday too, we're like, hey,
on
what
Friday
else
at 4 o'clock, and I don't even have a drink in my hand, which is just shocking.
No, and actually, this is interesting. Today is a awesome. Let's call it. It's probably like CPO week, because there has been a number of like partner events this week. Okta had their kickoff. Google Cloud had their marketplace exchange. We had our other event, and right before you, an hour or so ago, we had Nicole from Microsoft on the podcast.
Oh, is that right? Nicole did?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Wow. All right.
And so,
that is a true champion of partner.
Oh, totally.
Right there. Totally. That is, yeah. She runs the biggest, baddest ecosystem on the planet. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we were super thrilled. We were like, okay, this is going to be a phenomenal day, and we were looking last Friday. I've been like, oh, when is Friday going to come so we can talk to Nicole, and then we can talk to Greg, and then we're going to launch both of these episodes at the same time, so people will have a point of view from the vendor side and from the services side. And I think this would be. I don't think this has ever been done. So.
We're making history. I love it.
Exactly.
The expectations are high now, Greg.
Oh man, we just raised the bar. We had the bar down here. Now you learn. Oh man, what'd you do, dude?
Yoda, Nicole, you gotta
wow.
give us the wisdom.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we should get at it then.
Exactly. So the CPO role, right? Like from your point of view, what is the CPO role, and how should current partner leaders think about this? Because this is going to come up over and over again about org design, resourcing, all the amazing things that leaders need to know. But I think level setting from your perspective, because you have the opportunity to work with all of the, let's call it top 10 or 16 CPOs in the market.
Yeah. So I have a very clear view of what the CPO role is. So I'll certainly articulate that to the audience. But you also know there's a context that I apply. But before we start talking about CPOs and even partnering and the partnering function, the key question to me is, what is the business model of the company as a whole? Is it a company that still operates in, what I'll call the scarcity economy mode, where, partnering is a necessary evil? You want to use your own capital as much as possible to differentiate your product and service from your competitors' products and services, and you're trying to out CapEx and out OpEx them and out go-to-market them, and capital allocation is typically build and buy. It's rarely partner. And there are many, many companies that still fit this profile. Of course, it's been historically true. And then you have companies that have a very different approach, which is they believe in the abundance economy. And to them, CapEx is not just something you do within your company, it's something you do across companies, across partners. You combine not just your traditional capital, which is, dollars that you can allocate, but you also combine other asset classes like your human capital, like your access to customers, like your routes to supply, like your brand, like your IP and your data. So there's all these assets that companies that operate in the abundance mindset are looking to combine together to orchestrate an outcome for their common client. Which brings me to the other mindset, right? Are you a company that is inside out, meaning, you do some market fit analysis to figure out what products and services you should build, and then you tell your sales force to get out there and figure out how to sell it? Or are you starting with who is your customer? What is the outcome they're trying to get to? How can you help orchestrate that outcome, both with the products and services that you can provide directly, plus the products and services of others that, when orchestrated, create that outcome for the end client? So pretty widespread, right? Scarcity, inside out versus abundance, and, call it outside in, right? So, and it's funny, Asher, because, we hear about, these digital natives, they have this unfair advantage because they don't have all this legacy. And to that I say, pish posh, it's not true that they have an advantage because they're digital natives and they don't have legacy. They have an advantage because they operate from the get-go in an abundance mindset and outside in, right? That's really why they have an advantage. So coming back to the role of the chief partner officer, I believe that in the future, and we're always seeing this trend, the companies that are going to be successful are outside in an abundance mindset. They're partnering for combining capital, combining asset classes to more quickly orchestrate higher value outcomes for clients. And so if that's the model, if that's the context, then the partnering function should be an L0 function of the company. It should be on par with sales and revenue, with marketing, with IT, with supply chain, right? It should be a function of the company. And like every function of the company, it is the steward of a set of business processes. It doesn't only do those processes. Those processes, of course, cross the other functions of the finance function. There are finance processes that cross all the other functions of a company, right? Same thing with the partnering function. In fact, partnering, as you know, Asher and Kelly, touches every function of a company. The other neat thing about partnering processes is that partnering processes aren't just intra-company, they're also inter-company. There's a lot of intercompany process that you are the steward of if you're running a partnering function. And the reason that it should be a chief partner officer is because it is an L0 function. And like all L0 functions, the head of it should be at the decision-making table, particularly when you consider that when it's done well, it's a huge part of the capital allocation strategy of the enterprise, as well as the overall go-to-market strategy of the enterprise, and therefore it is a critical member of the management team to inform adequate business decisions. So CPO, head of an L0 function, ideally in an enterprise that is more and more realizing that shared capital models and outcome or outside in sales motion driven value propositions are the future.
I love that model and stated it extremely well. I'd be curious on your thoughts to go back to the kind of first step of your model in terms of the abundance mindset or the scarcity mindset. Of course, the second one sounds nicer just by the connotation of the words, but
that might be intentional. Yeah.
But realistically, what we see in market, right, is not all companies are there.
No.
And companies, by the way of all lengths of origin, right, you see, especially in tech, you'll see a lot of consumer-facing companies that are digital native, but they really don't have very many partnerships at all, and maybe they shouldn't. But that's my question to you is, what is the framework for deciding which companies should be all in on this? I think B2B SaaS, pretty universally, you see that success comes from that mindset in the technical platforms. But do you have a framework for that? Because it doesn't seem that it's going to be necessary for all businesses.
Yeah, so I'm not suggesting that every business just becomes, goes all the way to the right of the curve and says, look, everything we're going to be doing is going to be a shared capital allocation, shared go-to-market, shared everything. And also there's a nuance of, you're in a value chain. So some of your partnerships may be more supply oriented. Some of them may be more go-to-market or channel oriented. And then some of them, the strategic ones, sort of cross over both to supply all the way through the go-to-market. So there's a lot of nuance and variance. But when it comes to mindset, I do believe that the market will. It doesn't matter actually what I think. I think what you're seeing, it doesn't.
Well, I think it does because
it matters. It matters.
People pay you a lot of money for your thing.
Well, they pay. Yeah, they do pay me. They continue to pay my distribution oddly at EY. But no, what matters is what the market thinks, and I think you're just seeing inexorable trends in every industry, moving from the product version of that industry to the outcome version of that industry. So, one example I use a lot is the automotive industry. And the evidence is very clear. That industry is moving from selling you transportation vehicles that are quite expensive and, are optimized for one particular set of purposes, but not for all purposes that you might want a vehicle for. And ultimately, what you really want a vehicle for is to get from point A to point B in some level of comfort and safety. That industry is going to go to the mobility industry, because at the end of the day, people want outcomes. They want to get from A to B. If they want to be in a minivan and they want to drive it themselves, if they want to be a pickup truck and be driven, right? They want the outcome. And so you can see all the capital flows in automotive, or a lot of them, are going into who's going to own that space in 10 years, 20 years, particularly once we have self-driving cars too, which of course are going to completely change that industry. So, but every industry has their version of it. So what I think doesn't matter. You can see the trends, and you can also see the companies that have the highest market caps are the companies that are abundance mindset companies. Now, yeah, a lot of them are tech companies, but that's because tech is just so fundamental to unlocking economic value in every business. tech is sort of across everything when it comes to value creation and value unlocking. So it's not surprising they're tech companies. But if you look at the tech companies that are successful, they're the ones that Nicole, I joked earlier, she runs the biggest, baddest ecosystem in the world. There's a reason that Microsoft is so economically powerful on this planet. It is because part of their business model has been abundance. It has been to orchestrate value for clients, not just with their great technology platforms, but then working with and through a partner ecosystem to turn that into actual business value that clients can consume and drive value to their shareholders. So if you're running a company, you need to ask yourself, what's happening in my industry? What is the fundamental first principle to change that's happening? And am I running a company, or am I orchestrating an ecosystem to get an outcome? Or am I somewhere in between? And I don't even think most companies are thinking that way. And at least at the C-suite, you should be having that conversation.
It's interesting because for the last year or so, everybody's been talking about the word collaborative. But I actually like the word abundance better, because you're just coming from a very different point of view. You could collaborate when you don't have anything, but abundance,
I think collaboration is nonsense. Collaboration is, sorry, I do, and for all the people out there that have like I'm sorry, like I'm a business operator. Like I don't collaborate. Well, my teams collaborate with each other. I mean, collaboration is a human characteristic, and if you have a culture that's not a collaborative culture, you're going to struggle as a company. And if you're partnering and you don't have a team with a collaborative mindset working with another team with a collaborative, so that's a mindset, but that is not a business model, right? And so, yes, collaboration is an important cultural characteristic, but it's not. I don't view that as what we do. We're not collaborating. We are pooling our capital and our resources to orchestrate a value that each of us individually would fail to do. That is what we're doing.
See, this is exactly what we were talking about on the call with Nicole too. Because I'm like, we just need to take all the vagueness out of this thing and just be a matter of fact. Like, here's what I have, and here's how it helps the customer, and let's just go figure it out and get it done. Yeah,
that's right.
So do you like abundance better than, say, a platform business model because it's broader?
Yeah, I mean the concept of abundance is, look, platform as a commercial construct has proven to be very important, and it's not just at Microsoft. I mean, just around the corner here, I've got my tool wall, and my tool wall is dominated by these sort of greenish yellow tools called Ryobi. And that is a platform, that is a battery platform that has over 200 tools on it that I love. It's an amazing platform. So yes, platform is important as a business model, but doesn't mean that Ryobi is using an abundance capital model in bringing me that platform. So I think they're two separate concepts.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'd be hard to see a successful platform business model without that mindset.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about Ryobi to say if they are a scarcity.
I don't know anything about them, so yeah.
Other than I love their tools, and I'm not advertising their tools. To be very clear, this is not an endorsement of Ryobi. I'm just like Ryobi geek, right? I'm also Home Depot geek, so there you go.
Let me see if Ryobi has a chief partner officer. We may be able to get that person on the podcast.
Get them next. I want to meet them.
Like, can you tell us your platform strategy and your capital strategy? Okay, so this is actually interesting because, like, I did, up until this point, we have not had somebody on the podcast who's actually discussed capital models, right? Like, we've discussed commercial models, right? But the capital model concept, everybody's point of view is actually very unique. Like, we haven't discussed that at all.
And I'll tell you why you haven't, because most of the people you have in your podcast are focused on the right side of the value chain, the go-to-market, and not at all on the left side of the value chain, the product development and supply chain. And I mean, just look at the automotive industry, right? We'll use them again. On the supply side, they have been masters of partnering, haven't they? Right? Their tier one suppliers now help them design their cars. And in some cases, they're even co-branded into the car. You know, your Bose stereo, your Recaro seats, your Brembo brakes, your Borg Warner transmission, whatever it is. Yeah. But have they done the same level of partnering on the go-to-market side, other than dealership networks and rental car arrangements and so forth, which are more channel than they are actual go-to-market partnering. So, most companies have a concept of a supply chain, including strategic suppliers, some of which kind of raise to the level of partnering, particularly when they're co-branded into the value proposition, which they run completely separately from their downstream of the value chain, the right side of the value chain, where it's their go-to-market. And I think a lot of the people you've had really just focus on, all right, we've got our products, we just need to get them out there and sell them better. And so we need to use channel, and we need to use co-selling, and we need these other mechanisms of go-to-market to get them out there. And to me, that is why you're not talking about capital, because you're not thinking about the full value creation from back here, before your product. And then are you just selling your product and service, or again, are you orchestrating them in a combined capital model? And then you're also still doing all the go-to-market stuff that you talk about on your podcast, and most of your subscribers are probably focused on.
Yeah, I mean, we do talk about tech integrations as unlocking value, but it's not the same way as you're talking about like value creation, right? Like you're like even further before that.
Yeah. And by the way, tech integrate. So listen, cloud has been the gift that keeps giving. Yeah, because cloud has reduced the cost of the hurdle cost of interoperability, right? By companies coming together in these cloud infrastructure spaces, they are able to, at a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, do tangible things together operationally that before cloud they could never have done. So cloud and tech integration as a subset of cloud are extremely important unlockers of the ability of companies to, it lowers the hurdle cost of partnering effectively operationally. But that's not why you partner. You partner to orchestrate an outcome and to share capital to get a higher return on capital for all participants.
Yeah, which I think is wise. What you're saying is like completely reframing conversations that we have had in the past about companies co-building together, right? So they look at it as we're investing our engineering resources to build out a whole series of APIs and UI extensibility that you as the partner can then build on top of. So they're co-building together and they're putting their resources, but I don't think they frame the conversation the way you are.
And they also commingle the concept of platform. Yeah, they're building a platform business model, Jack, right? They're making it easy for that platform to have APIs in the case of tech into the platform to extend the platform, thus extend the surface area of the platform and the stickiness of the platform to the market, right? So that's all true. And they also are in an abundance business model because they are intentionally encouraging the capital of others into the value propositions that end clients ultimately consume. In some cases, they're more orchestrator. In other cases, they're just more of a marketplace, right? There's sort of a range there of how they think about this. The thing I like about Microsoft is they're both, they've got a massive marketplace and they do some orchestration, you name it, they do it all. And there are other companies like that as well, of course. But so I do think that people don't parse apart the different business concepts, right? It kind of gets all lost. And also they don't realize that partnering runs through the full value chain versus some people just look at partnering to the left of the value chain and others just look at it to the right of the value chain and they don't connect it all the way through.
Yeah. I mean, okay. This is a great point because for the last 2 years, I would say, at least in partnerships, I'm going to call it an echo chamber just for the sake of discussion. Yeah. It's all been about like the partnerships are all about the customer journey, and while that is true, you're just providing us a point of view that's even before the customer journey. And so there's a journey that I don't believe has been discussed, or at least, I mean, Kelly, have you heard the type of stuff that
I haven't heard Greg's framing. I feel like Greg's taking kind of a board level CEO view of the kind of assessment of the decisions to go into it. Right? Well, we're talking about generally are looking at more as the operator, even if though that they might be close to the C-suite, they're still looking at it as the execution layer. while Greg's looking at inputs, outputs of a business, right, at the core level.
Yes, and to be very clear, I am an abundance outside in person. So it always starts with who are the customers, what are the outcomes they're trying to achieve, what is the target addressable market for each of those outcomes. It's not about the customer. To me, it's about the outcome, and it's what's the target addressable market for the outcome within the customer, and then the customer set, and then what is the motion that's going to be distinct and valuable to the customer consuming that outcome, and then am I the orchestrator of that value proposition? Am I the leader of the motion? Who are the other parties involved? And then I go back a level from that. Is like, okay, so then what does each of us bring to this orchestrated outcome that we've agreed is an addressable market that we can each participate in? What capital and assets are each of us bringing? What OpEx are each of us applying? What risk are each of us taking? And what reward, how are we dividing the rewards amongst us in terms of the flows of value back? And by the way, those flows of value are not just dollars. Could also be customer relationships, could be access to IP, could be data is a huge one today, right? Every company is trying to get data, right? Because data, particularly thanks to the miracle of modern AI, generative AI, all of a sudden the hurdle cost of turning data into gold has gone down tremendously. I mean, how many decades have we been hearing companies say, "I need to clean up my data"? Right?
When will we not hear that? I feel like that's still a couple decades away.
No, I actually, so my hypothesis is it's not a couple decades away.
Really?
Because the hurdle cost of cleaning up data is quite high. So the business case has got to be quite high as well. And the business case for cleaning up data in most companies was usually very ambiguous. Well, we'll get all these wonderful benefits. It'll be great. It'll be like, it'd be like
right time, right place automation.
Yeah, right.
Better
all this
reporting.
great stuff.
Better reporting is the one.
Better reporting.
Yeah, you name it, right? Blah, blah, blah. But go ahead, value that, mark that to market. Sorry, can't do it. But Gen AI, I go, you know what? This data, I can now monetize it for this purpose. It could be taking costs out of my operations tangibly, or it could be creating a new sort of value for the marketplace, which gives me incremental revenue. Now, all of a sudden, cleaning up that data has a direct monetization path, either as a significant savings or a significant revenue or both. And now you're going to see increasingly the business case, thanks to Gen AI for cleaning up data, is going to go through the roof. So I do think we're in a decade where we will see companies finally clean up their data and get it straight. So to speak.
Let's get the hashtag decade of data right now, because that's going to be like our thing. All right, me, Kelly, and Greg, we're going to be charting the path to the decade of data.
By the way, I was a data architect very early in my career. My God, that is such an ugly business. I'm not touching it. No way.
It's so interesting, but it's so messy.
To all my data friends out there, go forth and prosper. I'm not doing it. I'm not touching it.
All right. I was going to buy decadeofdata.com. I'm just not going to do that.
Okay, good.
So, okay.
Greg will not be affiliated, Asher. Sorry.
Leave me up. Yeah.
Hey, I did build a data company also. So this is great. Like, I love the thinking, right? Now, how do like the current leaders that are in the market that don't think this way prepare themselves for this type of thinking, right? Because like they need this if they want to actually go talk to boards and stuff. But then there's preparation needed, right? Or is there more to what you're sharing before we move into this part of the conversation?
No, I mean, I think we've put all the concepts on the table, right? Maybe not in the most structured way as a podcaster for all, but it's not a presentation. But I think we've got all the elements out there, right? The question then is, how do you, if you're a partner leader, sitting in that little room they've got you cramped off into, right? How do you bust that door open and say, hey, wait, you're missing a trick here. There's more value than you're seeing. And by the way, we can elevate this function if you want to elevate the value creation that you do in the overall business model of the company. And even if you don't want to change your business model as a company, I guarantee you there's more value we can create with partnering than you're probably getting today because of the box you've put us in. So I do believe there is value in having that conversation. The trick is how many layers down are you from the C-suite? If you're like 5 layers down, that's a hard
You better be very
conversation to
aggressive in
have.
that case.
Yeah, good luck with that. Sorry. If
Get
you
some good data from generated by AI,
right.
maybe.
But a lot of chief partner offices are reporting to a C-suite member. So in many cases they're reporting to the chief revenue officer, particularly if it's a go-to-market oriented mindset for the partnering function, or they're reporting to the head of business development, the corporate development office, or they are reporting maybe to another C-suite function, so CFO. So for some, it's not that far a leap to get there, and the conversation can be had, or at least can be arranged. Depending on the receptivity of the C-suite and to both you as the chief partner officer trying to make your case, as well as, just you have to know your culture, you have to know your audience, right? You may not want to start with the big board level picture that I just threw out there on the table, right? That may not be a successful strategy for your first conversation, at least. So maybe you dial it back a bit and say, look, we could be getting more value if we were thinking about our go-to-market holistically. Because a lot of this is, again, a lot of companies, this function is put on the go-to-market side of the value chain. And if we were doing this sort of, let's start thinking about how we can be the orchestrator of the outcomes. What are the outcomes we care about? How could we be the better orchestrators of those outcomes? And then who do we need to partner with in order to, the minimum number of counterparties that we need to partner with to put all together to get to that outcome, and come with an example. That's always helpful. And then also, and realize though that this is also going to potentially touch on our product roadmap. We may need to rethink a little bit what features we're providing versus where we're borrowing the features of others. And it may also touch some of the other functions of our company, be doing more co-branding, right? So, but start with one. Start with a customer segment that you have validity in owning the orchestration of. That is not a huge leap for what you're selling today, inside out. So it's the pivot from inside out to outside in, right? What is the sales, and plummet back and say, look, if we thought about it this way, and we stopped thinking, well, we've got direct sales over here and we've got partner sales over here, and then partner sales is channel, but then it's co-sell, but then it's OEM. But we stopped thinking about it as all these little things. And we started thinking about what matters is the outcome. What matters is the motion. What matters is the partners. We might need to tweak our product and our go-to-market strategy together, not separately. That's probably a place where you can start to drive that conversation, knowing that there's a bigger picture here, but not going to the C-suite and saying, my God, I have a better way for you all to run this company. What do you think?
The whole company, every
Good luck with that.
They're like, who are you again?
Who are you again? Are you here?
It's two down.
The chief partner officer.
I am the chief partner officer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. So I guess if I was to summarize what you just said, it's you need to think about the org's priorities, right? And then think about the people who are going to complement you to differentiate you in the market, but also land the outcome, right? And this came up in the convo with Nicole too, because she actually halfway through the podcast made the point about us partner leaders need to be very careful and have some rigor around making sure that they push their teams to find partners that complement them, and then drive the company's objectives so that you can drive shareholder value, shareholder value.
Right. That's right.
And so this is, I just want to call this out because we're going to launch both podcasts at the same time, and people are probably going to listen to yours or hers first, but both of you had that point.
They'll listen to hers first, I'm pretty sure, and I'm okay with that. I'll listen to hers
but
first.
You're Yoda.
But I'm Yoda. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
But 10 million sounds like a big number until you realize she's at 70, 80, 100. Yeah.
Correct. But the thing is, both of you brought that point up first. Like outside of like, because you hear about trust and collaboration and all these other fancy words, but both of you said complement what your company needs, differentiate, and deliver.
I completely agree with her. No surprise. But I have a different way of saying it. More is not more. Less is more in partnering. A common mistake I see partner leaders make is, I'll add more partners and therefore I'll have more surface area and therefore I'll get incrementality.
Yep.
Not taking into account the incrementality of cost, the dilution of focus, and the inability ultimately to manage the outcomes because you got too many parties involved through too many routes. You don't have a single motion. You have multiple splintered motions. Like the whole thing goes, to me, if you're running a partner ecosystem, you shouldn't be thinking partner first and then what are we selling? Just like you shouldn't be thinking about product first and then how should we sell the product? You should be thinking about what are the outcomes and the motions that matter to my company? And then how do I, as the partner leader, help the company decide the right partners through the entire value chain, not just the go-to-market side of the value chain, they're going to get us there. And you will end up with a lot fewer partners who are a lot more valuable. And that is something that I think all of us as partner leaders could help our companies if we just changed our mindset and didn't make it about more is more. Because when we make it more is more, we're doubling down on you're just a channel, you're just incremental cost of sales, you're not very valuable, you're not strategic to the company, blah blah blah. If we want to be strategic to the company, let's start with what are the outcomes that matter, the total addressable market, the motion that will maximize the win rate and the acquisition rate for that customer segment, and then the partnering model and the go-to-market model that'll make that all happen. If we just switched our mindset and treated partnering outside in versus, hey, what partners do I have and what kit should we be selling together? That never, to me, is strategic and never will be.
Is that where you think the error is? Because I see the same thing you just said, which is a lot of companies. Some people even go so far as to like have a KPI on their number of partners, which is kind of silly. But you see a lot of companies really just go for volume. And part of the problem I see is people just don't understand what framework they could apply to really hone in on what their best partners are doing. And they're not data driven enough either to like put that analysis on and say like, hey, even look at your current suite of partners. If 10% of them are driving the outcomes, whatever ones you're looking for, what is it about them that makes them more high value? It just seems like people don't have the tools to do that work well. I don't know if you have like more specific frameworks, because what you just said is correct, but it's very high level as how someone could actually figure out which partners they should be putting their focus
Well, first
on.
of all, you got to separate access to customers from value creation for customers. So every company does need a quote channel strategy. And that, by the way, that's not partnering. And we call them partners, of course, right? But it's not really partnering. What it is it is a alternative sales force, right? So you've got your direct seller sales force, but you're not going to put a direct field sales force in every country that you might want to sell your product in. You're not going to put a direct sales force to cover every single size of client or market segment that you're going to sell to. So there is value in having the minimum number of channel partners to fill in the white space that your direct sales are not going to orchestrate themselves. You got to separate that from, okay, now where are we using partnering full value chain to orchestrate an outcome for the customer? And then the rails we ride, in some cases, we might ride through the rails of a channel partner. We might ride, or in other cases, we might ride through the rails of a direct field sales seller. But we got to separate the two concepts. Again, we commingle all these concepts just because of the way this thing sort of grew up organically, and no one ever really sort of stepped back and parsed it out into its piece parts and components and thought about it in a more structured way than it has been historically. So to me, you've got to parse out what is surface area to market, routes to customers, from what is value creating activity. And those are two different things. I don't know if I answered your question. You're looking at me like,
well, you think separating those two solves the problem.
You're looking at me like you're not Yoda anymore. You're like
I'm deleting all my LinkedIn posts for the last 2 years and starting fresh.
I'm not being critical. I'm suggesting that there's a way. You asked me if there's how we think about it, how I think about it. It's like I separate those two things. Like they're two different concepts.
And I agree with that. Does that solve the problem for you, though? Do you think that's the reason businesses are having too many partners? Is that they're lumping everything together and they're just willy-nilly?
It's both. They're lumping everything together, so they're not separating value creation from channel, from route to customer. Two, they are not thinking that in both cases, fewer routes. You don't want 500 routes to customer because don't you want your channel partners selling against each other? What good does that do you? Because each channel partner has an incremental cost of sales to you, right? You want as few channel partners to cover as much of the white space that's not covered by your field sellers as possible. So in either case, whether you're talking channel or you're talking now your value creating, your outside in value creating partners, you want as few as possible to get to the outcome. The outcome on the channel is to cover the customers that aren't covered by your direct selling. The outcome for the outside in is the value orchestration that is going to be, more distinct and valuable than anything that the customer can get elsewhere.
Yeah. One key takeaway from just this last 10 minutes of conversation for our listeners is Greg's like extremely numbers driven, and the numbers got to balance out on all sides of the equation, at
100%.
least from mine getting to know him, and I think what we will learn in this, like, let's call it season of CPOs that we have on the podcast, is there are different, like, obviously there's like different flavors of CPOs, but there's different types of CPOs that are better at for certain organizations than other organizations. But if you want to rise to that level, like the numbers just have to be dialed in, like and you have to then go and be able to explain them and watch them. And to me it's a different muscle, like it's not the I'm gonna go out and shake hands and do all those other things. This is a very, very, very like prioritize and optimize type of mindset.
You need to do a P&L. Yeah. You need to do a P&L on every single relationship you have and every single motion you conduct.
Yeah, totally.
You need to know what is the cost of sales, what is truly incremental versus what you would have had anyway, and there are ways to do that. And you need to say, okay, and then you need to convert that to, okay, so what is the incremental earnings? Because cost of sales is dilutive to earnings. Let's be very clear. And so if you're not getting a multiple of earnings on the cost of sale that you're expanding on a channel partner, on a sales motion, on a partner or a co-sell partner or a strategic partner, you need to reevaluate it, right? And you need to have the accounting discipline and rigor with your finance function to be able to track in your finance systems of record to the granularity that's necessary to then be able to aggregate up these analyses. And, you also need mechanisms to be able to clearly and without anybody saying it's a BS number, what is incremental versus, so now if it's a channel partner, obviously everything a channel partner, which is an alternative cost of sales, right? So you got direct sales, which is cost of sales, your direct sales force. You got channel, which is an alternative cost of sales. So instead of paying a commission and a salary to a direct seller, you're now sharing margin and benefit with a third party, right? So there's a cost of sales there. And then when you're doing this outside in value co-sell type of model, where you're bringing multiple companies together in a multi-company value proposition, okay, that's the most complicated. And in some cases, you could say, well, depending on the business you're in, let's pick, the professional services business, that's where I sit, right? How much of our SAP deals would we have gotten regardless of the fact that we are an SAP alliance partner and have sales motion with them versus, right? Well, we've got mechanisms to be able to tell that, including broad stroke mechanisms like we know the growth rate of consulting overall, which is where our SAP practice sits, is 14%, but our SAP business is growing at, let's say, making up numbers now. I don't want to reveal EY numbers. 30%. That's a 16-point spread in growth rate. And
do you feel confident with that analysis? Do you feel like that's generally works? Because especially when you get with these larger companies, they're almost like economies of their own.
I do think it works. I know it works. And so, we can show the spread between when we sell with them and when we don't sell with them. We can show win rate differences. We can show all that stuff, right? So, and by the way, it's not hard. I mean, why the hell do you partner to begin with? You partner because your clients expect you to. That's starting. And you partner because you're trying to create a combined value proposition that's going to win more often than others' combined value propositions. That's what you're doing. So your win rate is a very important thing, and your spread is a very important thing to track. And you can use those to derive the incremental earnings, which you can then use to bump up against that cost of sales, which you need to account for fully across the full enterprise to know whether the incremental cost of sales that you are spending on these relationships that are strategic are actually accretive to the balance sheet. And if you can't do that, then you are in an endless do loop of an argument with people that you're creating value that you can't prove. So of course it's numbers based.
This is why Greg's setup is so interesting, is because he's at an audit firm. So the numbers have to be right. There's like no question about it.
He's held to a higher standard than most tech companies in finance when it comes to this stuff.
But also, I mean, we're going to do, I guess, for people listening to our PL members, we have a session on the 28th, I believe. No, it is on the 28th, and Greg's going to be a friend of PL's for a while. Because the mission that he is on with us is to actually impart this knowledge and wisdom so that people really pull themselves up and we're going to solve this problem together. Because if he could do it at such a large company, there's no reason why the rest of the market can't do it, because all those companies are not as big as his company.
Yeah, it's less complex and less data on the smaller companies should be easier.
Let's not overstate what I've done or Nicole's done. We're both still, it's a journey, right? But we're pretty far. I mean, but Microsoft and EY are both pretty far down that journey, right? And there are other companies that are also pretty far down that journey I could name. And I do agree, Asher, you can't do it justice in a podcast. I think, we need to create some more structured content for people to consume.
This was just to get people an idea of the journey, that things aren't actually that vague as they seem to be. They actually are not. They don't need to be hyped. They're just very simple things that need to have some rigor behind them. And then we need to learn from you all who have done it really well and just do it.
Yeah, and it's no accident when you do focus on parsing all these concepts and understanding how they are separate concepts, but how they relate to each other, how you need to measure and focus on each one.
Thank you for listening to Unlearn. Subscribe wherever you listen and visit unlearnpodcast.com for the transcript.
All the indirect costs that we've moved offshore and automated with ServiceNow and other technology, right? There's a lot of, as you know, Asher, there's a lot of cost in these relationships because these business processes are very messy and very chatty and very data intensive in some cases, right? And so how do you take all that cost and drive it as close to zero as you can? Well, you've got to create a shared service that does all this stuff at a very, very advantageous labor rate, as well as moving as much of it to technology automations as possible. So the only human capital you're really paying significant money to are the producers, the relationship handlers and the producers, because those you'll have to continue to pay for.
Yeah, one of the things that's super amazing about you is most of the partner leaders will focus on, all of us will focus on value, right? Most of us will focus on stakeholders, but you're very focused on processes. Because if the processes are tight and they're run well, then there's no, let's call it partner ops debt, if you want to call that. And then you're always running as hard and as efficiently as you possibly can. And it's not like you have to do more with this, because I think like that construct just teaches organizations to give you even less resources. But what you're doing is you're just making sure that every dollar that's given to you is spent really wisely and really efficiently.
Well, and also, I don't charge the organization for resources. I charge them for services. So when you are running a partnership at my organization, you're writing a check to my shared service team to provide you with a defined set of services with SLAs.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people and how versus automations, that we manage all that in the background. You're not buying heads, you're buying outcomes.
Yeah.
So we've truly set the function up to be a big part of it is a shared service.
Yeah. It's actually like how HR runs in a lot of tech companies is how you kind of set up. We're going to run out of time, but like this is the type of stuff that we're going to do deep dives on for a while, because it's going to take multiple sessions to unpack that. But Greg, like as people are thinking, because we don't want to make the podcast longer than an hour because we got feedback that it's too long. But
well, this one's certainly too long, so there we are.
Exactly. I mean, I could talk. I mean, you and I could talk for hours. As we spend
you're not Lex Fridman and I'm not Jeff Bezos, so why don't we end it here? Eh?
Exactly. What's interesting is like the very first time I met you in person, which was at Catalyst. We were supposed to meet for like a happy hour. I don't even drink, so it was supposed to be like a 30-minute thing, and it became like a 4.5, 5 hour like dinner. And I'm like, oh, this is great. It's fantastic. So right from then I knew like we could hang out for a while. But what I would love to conclude on is some points of encouragement for the people who are thinking about becoming CPOs, because the CPO role, as we all know, has started in the enterprise. Right? It has a little bit more durability to it than just like some tech company trying to create a category, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are going to be more of them. And actually, since the beginning of the year, I think we started the year at like 837 or something like that, and I think we're like we're definitely like there's maybe 40 or 50 CPOs in B2B that have been the roles that have been created. So, but more importantly, all of those have been in enterprise companies, and so which leads me to believe that there is a path now for people that are not working in enterprise companies to move in that direction, but they need guidance. So, like, what would be your words of wisdom for them as they think about that? Because I'm pretty sure it's on people's minds.
So I'll hit 2 points again. One is it doesn't matter what I think. The market trends are remarkably consistent. Abundance mindset outside in, value orchestration business models are increasingly going to outperform those that are not. And therefore, the partnering function will naturally become more important in those enterprises. And, best practices through your organization and other routes will become more prevalent as will software platforms that enable these business processes and functions. So the trend is inexorable. You're in a growth market. So congratulations on your career choice. The other way I would say is you need to make sure that you are preparing yourself for that opportunity by changing your mindset, being outside in, less is more, plumbing the motions, helping the organization understand in a non-threatening way that there's a better way to do things, but let's just prove it on this one sales motion, right? And then, right, so you can be a change agent without going to the board and saying, my God, you need to move from to an abundance mindset and, outside, and they're going to look at you like, yeah, you don't need to do that. You just need to
They're going to be like, well, Greg told me I could do it.
Yeah, you talk to the Greg guy. Talk to Yoda.
Talk to Greg.
Who's Greg? Well, he used to be.
Yeah, he
talk
used
to Partnerships
be, right.
Yoda.
Right, the Partnerships Yoda. Great. No, please don't brand me that. So anyway, so you and your mindset as a partner leader, if you really want to take advantage of this in your career development and as opportunities open up, if you're walking that talk, you're going to get those roles as they become available. You don't need to force those roles to become available. They will open up, maybe not at your company, but at another company. And you need to prepare yourself to walk into them.
Very well said. All right. Well, folks, this was amazing. Greg, thank you for being gracious with your time. Thank you for being candid. Also, thank you for being an inspiration to a lot of us. A lot of people, as soon as I said, like, we're going to be working with Greg a little bit, they were like, wow, that is phenomenal and amazing. And so we just appreciate you and appreciate what you're going to do, help us out with.
And I appreciate everything you guys are doing too, by the way. This is long overdue that we have a community that is about the commercial side and not about the, what I'll call the IEEE or the process side. The process is important, but there's a broader commercial thing here. So I really value what you do, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a voice in your marketplace. So thank you for that.
All right, Kelly, Greg, have a great weekend.
Cheers all. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Unlearn. Subscribe wherever you listen and visit unlearnpodcast.com for the transcripts.